Hi buddies, my name is Fermin Romero. I am going to talk about competency-based language teaching. It is a task for methods of teaching English as a foreign language. It is important to take into account that this process is about a step up from knowing to doing. CBE addresses what learners are expected to do with the language, however they learn to do it. The focus on outputs rather than inputs to learning is central to the competencies perspective. CBE emerged in the United States in the 70s and refers to an educational movement that advocates define education goals in terms of precise, measurable descriptions of the knowledge, skills, and behaviors students should possess at the end of a course of study. CBLT is focused on what learners are expected to do with the language. This approach emerged in the United States in the 70s and can be described as the defining education goals in terms of precise, measurable descriptions of the knowledge, skills, and behaviors that students should possess at the end of the course. According to Merrill, 2002, CBE is a five-phase process where learners engage in performing real-life tasks or solving real-world problems. Very important. Existing knowledge serves as the foundation for new knowledge. New knowledge is demonstrated by the instructor to the learner. New knowledge is applied by the learner and validated by the instructor. And new knowledge is integrated into the learner's world. Very important. Competency-based approaches to teaching and assessment offer teachers an opportunity to revitalize their education and training programs. Not only will the quality of assessment improve, but the quality of teaching and student learning will be enhanced by the clear specification of expected outcomes and the continuous specification of and the continuous feedback that competency-based assessment can offer. These beneficial effects have been observed at all levels and kinds of education and training, from primary school to university and from academic studies to workplace training, according to Docking in 1994. CBLT movement, end of the 70s, an application of the principles of CBE to language teaching. 1983, the most important breakthrough in adult ESL is CBLT, and in 1990s accepted as the state-of-the-art approach to adult ESL. CBE instructors seek to provide less compartmentalized and more individualized learning experiences where students learn at their own pace, and once they have mastered a topic, they move forward. Although there are a number of CBE definitions in use, most definitions typically include a description of the competency and proficiency scale with accompanying indicating behaviors that describe performance characteristics at each proficiency level. Terms that are important to take into account in this approach: module, renewal, exercise, learning situation, competency-based approach, activity, and essential knowledge. Design. Docking, 1994, points out that the traditional approach to developing a syllabus involves using one's understanding of subject matter as the basis for syllabus planning. One starts with the field of knowledge that one is going to teach, for example, contemporary European history, marketing, listening comprehension, French literature, and then selects concepts, knowledge, and skills that constitute the field of knowledge. A syllabus and the course content are then developed around the subject. Objectives may also be specified, but these usually have little role in the teaching or assessing of the subject. Assessment of students is usually based on norm referencing, that is, students will be graded on a single scale with expectation either that they spread across a wide range of scores or that they conform to a preset distribution. A student receives a set of marks for his or her performance relative to other students, from which it is very difficult to make any form of judgment about the specific knowledge or skill a student has acquired. Indeed, two students may receive the same marks on a test, but in fact have widely different capacities and knowledge in the subject. One of the disadvantages of the approach. Many students no longer attend on-campus university, and the traditional residential college is now attended by less than 20% of students. Instead, students typically work, commute, or attend a college park. From 80s, 90s, students don't like to go to classroom because they feel a little out of place. So they are trying to get some other opportunities to learn and to share what they know in other kind of spaces. So it was one of the important situations that this approach used in order to grow. As the demographics and characteristics of students participating in higher education have changed, post-secondary organization must adapt to the ways these individuals learn, complete degrees, and acquire knowledge and skills. Essential skills: task performance, safety, general work-related, work schedules, timesheets and paychecks, social language, job application and job interview. This is according to Robicki, 1986. The indicating behaviors are critical to assessing student performance, similar to the way learning objectives are used to measure learning outcomes, according to Ford and Miller 2015. CBE will be defined as an outcome-based approach to education that incorporates modes of instructional delivery and assessment efforts designed to evaluate mastery of learning by students through their demonstration of the knowledge, attitudes, values, skills, and behaviors required for the degree subject. Gervais, 2016. In terms of assessment, advocates of CBE rely on previous mastery learning research, which suggests that at least 90% of students have the ability to attain mastery of learning tasks. Bloom and Carroll. This foundational research by Bloom identifies time required to master the task, teaching methods, and material use as the primary variables that influence the content mastery process. Therefore, for students to demonstrate competency in a given task, they must have ample time to master the material and be provided with the methods and materials that enable the largest proportion of students to obtain that mastery. Bloom, 1968. 10 elements of a competency-based system that you have to take into account in order to understand the approach. Intellectual mission, standards, progress monitoring, grouping, reporting, content, tools, teacher support, evaluation system, and community connection. All of these supports the self-directed and customized learning. Supports the learning has not age, supporting the determination of student learning and how experiences and adults' contribution are important for this approach. Retaining a job is one of the most important situations that I study in order to get this approach in the educational institutions. Implementation of CBE programs in ESL. Auerbach, 1986. 8 steps. A focus on successful functioning in society. A focus on life skills. Task or performance-centered orientation. Modularized instruction. Outcomes that are made of splits a priori. Continuous and ongoing assessment. Demonstrated mastery of performance objective, and individualized student-centered instructions. Those are the most important bases of this approach. Materials. They can use a sample text, assessment task, and reading competencies, writing competencies. Two of the most important problems that traditional education has, because students are not well motivated and they try to use this approach in order to let them fall in love of this context in order to make it better. Advantages. from the learner's point of view. The competencies are specific and practical, can be seen to relate to the learner's needs and interests. Second, the learner can judge whether the competencies seem relevant and useful. Negotiation. It is important negotiation between learner and teacher. 3. The competencies that will be taught and tested are specific and public. Hence, the learner knows exactly what needs to be learned and no unnecessary information, just what they need. Competencies can be mastered one at a time so the learner can see what has been learned and what still remains to be learned. Strengths. It meets the immediate needs of business and professions. It enables learners with whatever family commits to study at their own pace. For some students, it speeds up time to completion of a qualification, but enabling prior learning to be recognized. 4. Students get individual support and help from their mentors. 5. Tuition fees are affordable. 6. Competency-based education is being recognized as eligible for federal loans and student aid in the USA. 7. Institutions such as some examples using a competency-based approach at least as part of their operations have seen annual enrollment growth in the range of 30–40% per annum. Weaknesses. Its main weakness is that it works well with some learning environments and less well with others. It focuses on immediate employer needs and is less focused on preparing leaders with the flexibility needed for a more uncertain future. It does not suit subject areas where it is difficult to prescribe specific competencies or where new skills or new knowledge need to be rapidly accommodated. It takes an objectivist approach to learning. It ignores the importance of social learning. It will not fit the preferred learning style of many students. Sometimes it is very limited, and it is a very great weakness. Conclusions. There is a structure of socially prescribed knowledge to be mastered by students. Here, the function of education is to transmit the knowledge into socialized learners according to the values of the dominant socioeconomic group. It's not a very good way. The teacher's job is to devise more and more effective ways to transmit skills. What counts is success in delivery. Educational progress is defined in terms of improving delivery systems, according to Auerbach, 1986. It can confidently be said, as we enter a new millennium, that the business of improving learning competencies and skill will remain one of the world's fastest growing industries and priorities, as Riley and Lohan in 1997 expressed. It is important to comment that it is a very good approach that we can use in our institutions because it relates a classroom reality with needs and interests of the students. It is very important to take into account that position. But sometimes it could be not as good as we can feel because they sometimes are used only to try to create people, organize people, prepare people for work, but not for growing in their academic and critic process. So, thank you. The step that we have to take into account from knowing or learning to doing with that learning. Bibliography and reference: Richards, J.C. and Rogers, T.S. Competency-based language teaching in approaches and methods in language teaching, Cambridge University Press. So that's all. Thank you.